And we are live. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome to the Joy of Pixels podcast for Friday, June 26th, 2020. I am joined by the Akko Sambo once again. How are you doing, Akko?
I'm doing all right.
You're looking very fancy there. You got your hair all slicked back and nice shirt on. And ready for
Yes,
a night out on the town, right?
Yes, exactly. I will visit the disco.
Oh, the disco. Did you play Disco Elysium? I don't know why I randomly thought of that now.
It, yeah, I started it. Yeah.
You started it, so you didn't finish it.
Yeah. No, I just got sidetracked. It's a long game, but I from what I've played, I really loved it.
There's a lot of reading, and that kind of turned me off of it.
Yeah, I played it on YouTube, and it was a lot of work. Then I think it was pretty encumbered with my actual work. So I was then just not feeling spending my free time like 2 hours just reading through things, because also in order to make some progress, you have to go through a lot of things, but I also want to do it thoroughly.
Yeah.
So it was overall pretty long episodes with lots of reading, and it was just very exhausting. But the game itself was great, and I'm kind of mad that I didn't continue it, because I really enjoyed it. Just then sidetracked.
Yeah, same for me. I only played like maybe 2 or 3 hours. I feel like the start is really just kind of a little bit of a slow start. Really kind of drags on a little bit, but at the same time, I could realize there was something interesting going on here, and it was definitely a unique game. I really wish that game was fully voice acted, though. I keep hoping that with as much success as it's had, that maybe they would pull like a Divinity and go back and voice act everything. I think that would be really cool.
I would love that. Maybe even if it's like an enhanced version where like another $10 or so, I would be okay with that. Because like I don't mind reading in games, but it's just like, especially for content creation, it just is very strenuous on the voice.
And also the
focus and
the small voice acting that they have in it is like really, really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, don't know why in the world I got off on that. It's your fault. You said disco.
Of course, take all the blame.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to everyone in chat. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you've had a good week. We have had, I've had a decent week. How's your week been? You started back to work, right?
Yes, first week back to work, 3 days in a row. My feet are killing me. I'm not used to work anymore after 3 months, but the hope for money soon makes it all the better.
Yeah, for sure.
Who needs feet if you have money?
Right, exactly. You can buy new feet.
Exactly.
Well, let's see. I've been playing a few games. You've been playing a few games. You've been playing one game at least. What have you been playing?
Well, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but I'm also playing. But the new game.
You're always playing Odyssey.
Exactly, and that won't change for a while. So, but the new game that I've been playing, and I guess that won't change for a while either, but still very excited that I started with it. It's Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah.
A game that I played a bunch of when it came out. I was never able to finish it because I got sidetracked there as well. But now I'm back to it. I think 3 streams into it, roughly 10-ish hours or so, a little over 10 hours, I think. And I'm having a great time with it. I enjoy it. And I think I mentioned it before, the game. It's probably not on par with the original trilogy, but I still think that for me personally, it's a well above average game and a good game if you like the previous games and can overlook some of the visual issues mostly, because by now that the game is fully patched and a little updated, I think it's really just minor things that might come in the way. Gameplay wise, it plays very well. I really enjoy the gameplay. I think the combat with the jetpack and the new abilities is much more dynamic and more action oriented, but also just feels a little more engaging, because one of the criticisms that I would have with the Mass Effect trilogy in the combat is that especially on higher difficulties, that it mostly is like you wait behind cover, the enemy stands behind cover, and then it's kind of the standoff to wait until you chip away on the enemy, shoot him a little bit, shoot an ability, and then you wait again behind cover until you recover. And it's a little tedious. Whereas in Andromeda, with the jetpack and some of the other abilities, you're much more mobile, which makes the combat faster, but not in a hectic way, just in a more exciting way for me personally.
Yeah, the gameplay I think is the best it's ever been in a Mass Effect game. I should say too that my history with this is kind of similar to yours. I played quite a bit when it came out. I think I probably put, I don't know, 25 or 30 hours into it. I played it on launch and ran into some bugs, like a lot of people did. It definitely had some issues at launch, but I think it was blown way out of proportion with the number of bugs and issues that it had. And so I just decided to kind of shelve it for, the time being, and figured that I would go back once they updated it some more and, maybe came out with some new DLC. And then they announced that they were not going to come out with any DLC and that they were basically just abandoning it. So that made me kind of sad. And then, I just kind of didn't come back to it. But I do really want to come back to it because I think it was a pretty good game. I mean, yeah, it wasn't perfect. It definitely had some issues. And, it kind of just breaks my heart almost to know that like we probably won't get a sequel to it, even though they, from my understanding, they kind of set it up for a sequel and kind of wanted this to be a new trilogy. And I think it was just like the perfect setting for a new trilogy because you literally have a whole new galaxy, and you could just do anything you want with that. But yeah, what do you think about the story so far?
I mean, obviously, I'm not too far into it, and I don't want to take go ahead too far from what I still remember, although it's not much. But I remember that the story was fine. It wasn't something that blew me away, but I thought it was a decent enough main story. And what I did remember, though, that I thought some of the companion specific quests, they were much more intricate, and some of the more localized quests for the different planets are really where some interesting stuff was there. And then the main story was fine without being too special, but again, nothing that I think deserves any of the big hate that the game receives. And even in terms, I mean, obviously one of the big criticisms was the facial animations and all that. And first of all, it's not really that important to me. And second of all, like, if we're honest, the Mass Effect trilogy was never really a technical marvel of realistic looking characters. They were like, they all looked very, especially the humans, all looked very rough, even for the time. Like, it was very basic facial animations. There was not much detail to the faces, really. It was a few generic faces that you had, and then oftentimes the same model was used for multiple characters. And it never bothered me in the original trilogy, but I'm just surprised why people then were so upset that it really wasn't that spectacular in Andromeda either. Sure, has a lot to do with the expectation of waiting so long for a new Mass Effect, but if I compare it to other games roughly around the same time, I don't think it's that much worse than a Fallout 4 was. And I know that received also some criticism, but I mean, it's really not my first priority anyway. And like, does it really impact the fun of the game that much? I highly doubt it, honestly. I think it was really blown out of proportion and just something that took a life on its own, where people then latched onto. And let's hammer on the big bad BioWare guys,
Yeah.
which they deserve a lot of criticism, no question about it, but it's also not necessarily the fault of the game. And I think if you take the game for itself, it's a very solid game. Again, I think it's a well above average game. It's not a perfect game. It's not my favorite Mass Effect game, but I also don't think that it's deserve that much criticism, and that it's not a bad game by any stretch.
Yeah, it's such a fine line, and this bothers me so much, especially with Mass Effect, because I am such a massive Mass Effect fan. Because I think that the game definitely deserved criticism, but like you say, it didn't deserve the amount of hate that it got. I understand why some people were kind of frustrated because, I think if you look at the game compared to, like, Dragon Age Inquisition came out before this, and I think maybe that game looks a little bit better in terms of like facial features and lip syncing and that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's pretty close. Again, like, this shouldn't affect, at least for me, and I think for most people, graphics shouldn't really affect your buying decision. I mean, yeah, if it looks like a 16-bit RPG from 1995, then you might question, like, what's going on here.
Where did the millions go?
But I hate it because, yes, it deserves criticism, but it doesn't deserve to just be hated on so much by people. And the sad fact is that, like, if people were a little bit more lenient on this, we probably would be hearing about Mass Effect Andromeda 2 right now, because it again, maybe it wouldn't have gotten perfect reviews.
Bigger expansion.
Yeah, there was planned DLC for this, and they scrapped that. They basically just scrapped the entire game. And I think people forget, like, look back at Mass Effect 1. I mean, that game was janky as all get out. Yeah. But you could see the potential in it, and going from Mass Effect 1 to 2 was a huge step forward. And then I would even say 2 to 3 was another big step forward. Some people would disagree in the story, but in the gameplay and the mechanics and the graphics and everything like that, it was another step forward. And it just sucks because I love Mass Effect so much, and I don't want them to abandon it. I don't want people to hate on it. Criticize it if it deserves it, but don't all jump on a bandwagon. Kind of like we could kind of have a little bit of discussion about this with The Last of Us, where it's getting review bombed and everything like that. We talked a little bit about that last week, but I didn't really know what was going on because I hadn't looked at any of the reviews or anything. But yeah, I'm glad that we have this game. I'm glad that we have Mass Effect Andromeda. Do you think they're gonna make more Mass Effects? Like, will this? Yes. I think they will too.
There will be a new Mass Effect, and I think, I mean, BioWare is obviously generally in a tough situation, because as much as people disliked, the public opinion at least, Mass Effect Andromeda, Anthem was kind of the in the coffin then, but people hoped that they would turn it around, and this will be the Mass Effect everyone was hoping for, just in a more Destiny, combined with Destiny features. And I mean, there were issues again. So if I would work at BioWare and would want to get back the fan base, a new Mass Effect, a good Mass Effect, is the way to go. Like, if they come out with the next Mass Effect and they actually deliver and listen to some of the feedback, and also really get out a game where, like, a game of the year contender type, I think then everyone will forget about it. And then you will have the moment where people will go back to Mass Effect Andromeda 1 or whatever it's then called.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually not that bad.
This wasn't that bad.
No.
Yeah.
And I think you will have that a lot, because when I originally played it, so I played it before the patches, and I remember at some point while I was playing it, then the first patch for the facial animations came out, and after that it did look significantly better already. But even before that, I think for me it was, yes, a bit noticeable. It was something that should be pointed out for a AAA game, that it was subpar. But I played it a couple of hours and then I just got used to it because I was focused on other things. I was focused
Yeah.
on the story, on the characters, getting to know the new galaxy, getting to know the characters. And so I was just used to the facial animations. And when they then changed it and updated it, then I noticed it was like, oh yeah, that looks better. But then I got used to that after a couple of hours again, because that's just how it goes, especially with a very story and character driven game like the Mass Effect games are. And someone in the stream mentioned the same thing, that the same thing happened to them, and something that kind of made me sad. Someone stopped by during the stream and was kind of like, "Oh, is this a playthrough?" Something along the lines of, "Will you just shit all over the game the entire time, or will it be a little more respectful?" And it kind of makes me sad that it's like, okay, apparently there's also a lot of the people just play it and then just shit all over it from the get-go before even getting to a point. And I've seen a couple of playthroughs from people I follow as well, that they started and before even really getting off the initial mission. I'm not sure if you remember, but it's like the very first thing. Like they even then talked about the bad facial animations and that it's not like the old trilogy and that the characters are not as good. And I'm like, how in the world do you know that?
Yeah.
There's the and then the characters are not as deep as the ones in the Mass Effect in the first trilogy, and it's like, yeah, because it's just one.
Well, of course they're not, because you just met them.
After Mass Effect 1, I didn't have that much of a connection to Garrus, Tali, and like I liked them, but it wasn't like this deep connection that I had after 3 games with them.
Right.
It just doesn't. It just isn't how it works. But yeah, I just think it's a shame, and I feel like a lot of people who may have held off on playing the game because of the negative reviews, but are interested, even if it's not just because of Mass Effect, but are interested in a good sci-fi RPG, try it out. Like, especially by now, you probably can get it for a few bucks somewhere in sale, like for not much of an investment. Try it out. It's fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we don't have any other science fiction RPGs like this game, like a space traveling exploration RPG. There's nothing else like this, and that I can think of. If anybody knows, like, let me know, because I love this genre. But I was thinking about this the other night. I was like, man, there's just really nothing else like Mass Effect.
More like a simulation sandboxy direction, like an Outer Wilds or No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky, yeah.
Direction. Dead Space and stuff like that. So I can't think of anything either.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's the Starfield game that's coming up from Bethesda whenever that comes out. I think that could
maybe a new Mass Effect comes out before that.
So. Yeah. I think that could be really interesting. I'm also really excited for Starfield just because it seems like that's an IP or a new franchise that, like, they are really excited to work on. Like, it's something completely new from Bethesda. So
I guess now the Outer Worlds, right? Like, that is.
Well, that's a good example. Yeah. Still, though, that one felt like a little bit more budget. I mean, it's good, but you can just tell that, like, they were working on a little bit smaller budget. It's a little bit more self-contained. But yeah, that's a really good example. That's maybe the only other one that I could think of.
Yeah.
Alpha says, boo, No Man's Sky needed a year and a heap of patches to be a workable game. Yeah, I mean, No Man's Sky, I think, is a great game now, and I think it easily delivers on everything that it originally promised. 4 years later? 3 years later? The problem is, for me, I've tried to pick it up multiple times after the patches, and I always have fun with it up to about, like, I don't know, like 10 or 15 hours in, and then I just like hit a brick wall with that game. Same, to where it's like, what am I doing? Because you literally just do like the exact same thing over and over. You get resources to get better collecting materials, to get more resources, to get bigger inventory, and it's like, I don't know. It just gets boring after a while.
Like, I just have that issue with a lot of these. Just grindy
Open
games where
world sandbox, yeah.
yeah. Same with like a Minecraft or even a Stardew or so. I enjoy it for a good amount of time, but then also there's something else that I then am more interested in at some point, and then I just drop it and don't return. And then at some point I start a new playthrough because I'm interested again. And oh yeah, that would be
Yeah.
nice to have this sandbox world and like create your own story, and then you do that for a few hours, and then it's over again.
Yeah. It's too bad because, man, there is something about that game that I really do like and I think is really cool. But yeah, same for me. Like I have to admit I haven't picked it up in probably like a year and a half or so. So I kind of want to dip back in just to see.
I picked it up when they had the big update, the last giant update.
I'm trying to remember which one that one was. They've had so many major updates. I mean, it's been really impressive.
Yeah, they worked hard on the game. I mean, you got to hand them. There's a lot of valid criticism. I think, obviously, not to a degree that they to receive, like with death threats and all of that. I mean, people need to calm down a little.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of valid criticism as well. And they have to face that. That just is some trust from the community that they threw away. But you also got to hand it to them that after that they really picked it up and they worked very hard on the game, continued to work on the game, and really improved it. And every time I went back to the game, there was a bunch of new stuff and improved stuff. So yeah, got to point that out too.
Alpha asks, I'm not sure if this is directed towards you or me or both of us. Do you like Mass Effect as much as DS? I'm assuming Dark Souls. They're so different games for me. Like it's hard to compare that.
Was asked while you were talking, so I will stay out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're just completely different games. Like one is a, fantasy science fiction RPG. Where you create your own character. I guess you create your own character in Dark Souls. For me personally, like I've never cared about the story in Dark Souls. I don't care too much about the lore. Like it's just all about the exploration and the challenge and the bosses and the enemies. Whereas Mass Effect is like kind of the exact opposite. Like I've never really cared too much about the actual gameplay, although in Andromeda I do think the gameplay is really good, but it's like 100% about the story, the universe, the characters. So I don't know if I had to pick one. Dang, that's a really hard choice. I might pick Mass Effect because like in the end story matters the most to me personally. But can I get a Mass Effect with Dark Souls-like combat? I don't even know how that would work.
I think then you get close to like a Fallen Order situation more than anything. But that would be cool with teammates, like having a squad of people. It would be difficult to do as a game, but if they would do it well, that would be fun.
There's that game Remnant from the Ashes. Did you ever play that? No. That was kind of described as a Dark Souls with guns. So I don't know. Maybe they could do some kind of mechanic. I don't know. Honestly, I don't think I would want that. Like I like Mass Effect how it is. I like the gameplay enough. Like again, the gameplay is always kind of secondary to me in Mass Effect because it's like it's all about the story and the universe and the characters.
It's serviceable for the story because like you don't have to focus too much on that. You can be more immersed in the characters and the things that are going on and have to less focus on perfect aim on using your abilities in a perfect way to get through the levels.
Would you ever want, or could you ever see this working, a first-person Mass Effect?
I hope not.
Really?
I'm not a first-person fan, so I prefer the third person. So
what if it was
sure.
What if it was like a Fallout situation where you could swap back and forth?
Always third person.
Yeah. Man,
At least that's what I choose. I mean, if the option is there, again, options are always great, but I would always play in third person.
every time I play a third person game, I always just wish I could go into first person because to me it's just so much more immersive. Um, but at the same time, like in an RPG like that, I definitely like being able to see my character. Um, but I think of games like Prey, like the newest Prey, and like Deus Ex, which tend to be more of like these immersive sims, as the cool kids call it these days. Um, and I really, really like that genre. I really like the immersion that it creates of being in first person and just like really being able to look at every little detail in the environment and really just suck myself into it. But I do still like the third person view in Mass Effect and a lot of RPG games like that.
Yeah, I think for me it's the exact opposite. I think I have a easier time immersing myself in third person because I think for me it's a movie thing. I think for me, getting then immersed into like an interactive movie that I'm playing. Um, and for that I need to see the character that I'm following. And
Yeah,
with the first person, I have a harder time. I feel like I'm more focused on gameplay and mechanics, and like I have a harder time focusing on like getting a feel for the character that I am because I don't see it.
for sure, and that's definitely a big worry that people have about the upcoming Cyberpunk game. I'm curious what you think about that because it's going to be in first person, and that has gotten a lot of criticism. People really wanted that to be in third person.
And yeah, it's it's hard to say without having played it. Am I a
Yeah,
little bit concerned about that personally? Yes, but I also know that I mean there are plenty of great first-person games out there, and there are a lot of people who prefer first-person games. So it just yeah, it's a creative choice they make, and it can work, it cannot work, and maybe it won't work as well for me, but even better for others. That's also totally possible. I think it is too early and to now already make a decision whether it's good or bad. That would be kind of like comparing Dark Souls to Mass Effect. It's kind of you don't know. Like it's maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. Like maybe it will be an even better experience than for all the people who love the Bioshock series. All first person, super immersive, very heavy
yeah,
story,
that's a good
right?
example.
People loved it. Maybe it will be even better than that. Then it was a great decision to make it. Maybe it won't. Maybe people will feel like it's kind of like The Witcher, just you can't really get into the character. Then it was the wrong decision. And maybe it will be a mix in between. I don't know. But I don't think, generally speaking, it's neither good nor bad. It depends on how they handle it. And there are certainly games that incorporated first person very well into a very story heavy genre, Bioshock for one. Um, yeah, kind of, and also, I mean, in the past, in terms of the Witcher 3, CD Projekt Red has been pushing the boundaries of what an RPG experience should be like. So maybe that is them saying like, "Hey, we want an RPG open world experience with a solely first person perspective, but make it work better than anyone else before."
Man, Akko, it's almost like we shouldn't judge a game before it comes out.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy.
It kills me. I mean, look, I am crazy excited for Cyberpunk, but it kills me the people that like are already saying like, "Oh, this is going to be game of the year," and no question. Like, what else is going to come out that's going to beat
Maybe
it?
it will suck.
Yeah.
Like I'm generally speaking, like with CD Projekt Red, so far they have given me no reason to doubt their decision making in terms of making a game,
They've
because
only made
everything
3
they did,
games, and
they only
they're
made
all
three
in the
games, and
same
I love all
series.
three of them. Yeah, but I really love all three of them. So I have no reason for now to think that the game would suck, because so far the track record for me is 10 out of 10. But that doesn't mean that there won't be at some point a game that I won't like. if they continue making games. And could it be Cyberpunk? Sure. Could it be because it's not as good? Possibly. Could it also be that it's not my cup of tea because it's a complete different genre, complete different setting, probably complete different gameplay? So it might just not be a game for me, or for a lot of people, because it won't be The Witcher. It will be completely different. I think that is what people also need to keep in mind. This won't be a Witcher 4 with flashy lights. This will be a completely different game in all likelihood. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a good thing. It's just different, and that's fine. But that also means that we kind of have to just wait and see how things go and how they actually bring things onto our PCs and consoles and when.
Yeah, I can't wait to play it in summer 2021. Man, we've been jumping around all over today. Anything else you want to say about Mass Effect?
Anything else about Mass Effect? I have so much to say about Mass Effect. But, no, for now. I think we will probably talk more as I continue with Mass Effect Andromeda and can talk.
Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of hear how it goes, what you think about it as it goes on.
But other than that, again, just if anyone held off from playing Mass Effect Andromeda just because of the initial backlash, especially by now, if you can grab it for a discount or so, try it out.
It's probably like $5 or something like that right now.
You can probably grab it somewhere for very cheap. So try it out. I don't think that it's a bad game at all. It's definitely worth giving it a chance, and in my opinion, definitely better than a lot of other games.
Very cool. All right, let's see. I have been playing some more Majora's Mask. Still enjoying that. I started up another adventure in Resident Evil. I started Code Veronica. This is my first time playing like an old school Resident Evil, because I played Resident Evil 1, but I played the remake, the technical remake of that, which is still a very old game, but I feel like it feels much more modern, even though it still has the fixed cameras and all of that. But they don't have any kind of remake or remaster for Code Veronica, so this is like a game that literally came out in 2000. So it has tank controls, which I really struggle with. Although I am kind of getting more comfortable with that. But this is technically Resident Evil 3. In like the trilogy, because there's Resident Evil 1 that takes place where Chris and Jill go to the mansion, and then there's Resident Evil 2, which takes place with like in the middle of the outbreak in Raccoon City, where Leon and Claire, you play as Leon and or Claire, and Claire, I guess, is kind of like I was going to say she's kind of like the canon character in this, but I guess it's really kind of Leon and Claire. But Claire is searching for her brother, which her brother is Chris, and she comes to Raccoon City and gets caught up in all of this, and doesn't find Chris, finds out that Chris is off in Europe vacationing. No, he's he's trying to track down Umbrella and figure out what's going on with them. So you then in Code Veronica take off to Europe again in search for your brother, and I think it takes place in Spain, or maybe it's like a fictional European. It's probably fictional European city. But yeah, it is bizarre and wacky and silly and over the top, and I absolutely love it. It is just like it's just the perfect blend of silliness and over the top that I love these games for. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say other than I just am having a really good time with it. It's very much classic Resident Evil, where I'm picking up clues to things and picking up little emblems that will fit into doors that unlock those doors, and fairly limited ammo, and trying to weave around zombies and all of that stuff. There's just something about those games that I love so much, and I never would have thought that I would have loved the fixed cameras as much as I do, but I really just love it. It just adds to the tension so much, and so I'm having a really good time with that. I think I even want to go back, even though I've played, the remakes of 2 and 3. I think I want to go back and play the original 2 and 3 as well, just because it's such a different experience with those fixed cameras and everything. But yeah, I've just kind of made it my quest to go through all of the Resident Evil games and having a blast with that.
Oh, that's a good quest to have. It's about the 10th Assassin's Creed Odyssey time.
Yeah, that's the other nice thing about these games is, for the most part, like, they're usually fairly short. Resident Evil 1 is actually really long. It's like 25 to 30 hours for a first playthrough, but the other ones are like 8-10 hours. You can get through them pretty quickly. So yeah, they're just fun, self-contained experiences.
Nice.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just said, yeah, nice.
The other game I've been playing, a small little indie game. Don't know if many people have heard of it. Last of Us Part 2.
Oh. Puzzle game?
Yeah, it's 16-bit, puzzle game. It's it's okay. No, so let's talk about Last of Us 2. So I'm not going to mention any story spoilers, not going to mention anything about the story. I'm going to try and just kind of, it's a very hard game to talk about because there is so much stuff that happens. But I'll just try and kind of mention my general thoughts about the gameplay. If anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know about that as well. But I will say I love it so far. I think it's fantastic. I am I think I'm 23 hours into it right now. Very long game. Yeah, the first game was like maybe 12 to 15 hours. And like I said, I'm 23 hours in, and I don't think I'm like very close to the end. It doesn't seem like it. I think I'm maybe a little over halfway. But yeah, I really, really, really like the game so far. I was not huge on the gameplay of the first game, even though the story and just like the game in general, I've considered it to be one of my favorite games of all time. Like, definitely top 10, maybe top 5, maybe top 3. But yeah, I loved the first game, but hated the gameplay. This one, I wouldn't say it really does a whole lot different in terms of gameplay, but it definitely evolves a lot. But there's nothing revolutionary about the gameplay. But I guess this would be a little bit more revolutionary. It has some amazing accessibility options. So you can do things like you can set time to slow down, like when you aim down your sights, like when you're using your weapon and you aim down your sights and you are killing someone, you can have it slow down like fear or something like that. And so it just lets you, aim a little bit smoother. It has the Uncharted 4 lock-on system that I really, really appreciated and really allowed me to get through Uncharted 4. You can turn that on and off. It has a fantastic hint system that you can turn all of these on or off. But you can have it turned on, and I have this turned on to where at any point you can just hit down on the left stick and it will just pop up a little arrow showing where to go. Because that's another thing. These environments are massive that they've created, and it's so this is a little bit of a negative to me. It's very, very easy to miss things. And not just like little pieces of loot. Like I actually missed a weapon that like you can only get in this one area, and then it will lock you off from a lot of areas. So I thought there's kind of a big open area to start with that like you can just go anywhere you want, you can explore anywhere you want. And I thought that I could come back here, but it turns out that like I kind of was, didn't even intend to do this, but I was just kind of wandering around and kind of accidentally triggered a cutscene, and it was like, nope, can't go back there. And so I ended up reloading, and I had to go through like 3 hours of replaying this to fully explore this area because I wanted to get everything. And it's not even like a collector's type thing where I just wanted to get everything. Like, there are main things that you can miss very easily if you don't really search for things. So I have mixed feelings about that. I don't know if I hadn't gotten these items, if like they would have shown up later in the game. I would hope that they would, because again, like, they're main things that you really would want to have. They wouldn't be things that you would have to have, but you would definitely want to have these things. So if anyone is going to play this game and you haven't played it, like, definitely search everywhere. Be very thorough with your searching. Now, that could be kind of a negative, but I honestly love just the exploration of this game, and just going through the environments and just looting things, and just exploring things. It's all done very well.
A little bit like, maybe not gameplay wise, but in terms of world, more like the recent Tomb Raiders, where you have these larger areas to work with.
I'm sorry, the first of that cut out. What did you say?
Almost sounds more like
okay,
a bit like the Tomb Raiders.
Well, I'll tell you what it's like. So you played Uncharted 4 and then you played Lost Legacy, right?
Yes.
So you know how in Uncharted 4, when you get to the Madagascar level, where it's kind of just open world, basically, and you could tell that like Naughty Dog was kind of experimenting with that formula, and just like, kind of like, what could we do if we had an open environment here, like where you could kind of go anywhere, but also it's kind of still linear, like where you want to go at the end. And then Lost Legacy kind of like expanded on that even more, where I can't remember what the area was, but they gave you a big open area as well. And then I think they even had like some optional, almost like side quests or something in that, didn't they?
Yes.
So
it was like mainly one side thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the next evolution of that. So it's very much done in that style, where you have kind of a big, the game is not really open world. I wouldn't say it's open world at all, but it's more like these open areas, where there's a lot of areas that you can search. You can skip stuff very easily, but it is definitely worth it to explore these areas. Now, that I feel like could be a downside if you are somebody that doesn't really enjoy that, because it is very tedious. And I do think that this is a bit of a problem that the game has, just in terms of pacing, because it's like, I don't know, you go through these areas, and again, if you're not really thorough, then you're going to miss stuff. And for me, that's okay, but it like 23 hours in, and I feel like I've still got quite a big chunk of this game left. I even right now, I'm starting to find myself like, I'm not sure if I really want to spend so much time searching, every single environment. Now, the good thing is, back to the accessibility options, there is an accessibility option that you can turn on that's like a basically like a Spidey sense scanner type thing. So if you remember in the first game, you have the listen mode, where you hold the right button and they kind of can like view enemies that are nearby you and things like that. You can go into listen mode, and then you can hit a button, and it will send out a little pulse and show up stuff that you can loot. And honestly, if I hadn't turned that on, I feel like I would really be getting kind of frustrated and just really be missing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And again, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal if it was just like small resources and things, but it's like big things that, again, I don't want to say what it is, but it's like it's things that you want to get.
Yeah.
So that's a little. I don't really want to say it's a problem because again, like you can turn those accessibility options on, but I do feel like it is kind of an issue that like you shouldn't really have to turn the accessibility options on to find all these things. And again, like if you really take your time and really explore every single area, then you will find all the stuff. But I feel like that would start to just get really, really boring and tedious, even for someone like me that just loves doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can see that it probably would cut also into the tension when you're just like running around for 10 hours while just the main story is just waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say I think that they do a pretty good job at like most of these environments. There are usually enemies there, and so while you can, for the most part, you can clear out the enemies. There are a lot of enemies, and so you usually, unless you are just like really, really good or really, really lucky, you usually are going to end up getting into a fight. And you're usually going to end up being discovered. So you do have to like start picking up these resources even while there's enemies out in the field in areas like this. The other thing though with the combat, it's really, really good. So I didn't like the shooting. The shooting was the main thing, honestly, in the first one. I just am so bad with aiming with a controller, and they make it even worse because they have so much sway and like the enemies are very moving around a lot. But again, with the accessibility options that you can turn on, it just makes it so much more enjoyable. You do have some new mechanics in the game. You can go fully prone, so you can lie down on the ground, and that helps you camouflage yourself a little bit better in tall grass and areas like that. But again, this is like, I feel like it's just almost a very niche genre for people, because I know there's a lot of people like Vermalt that hate stealth, and I know there's a lot of people that just hate stealth. I personally love it. I mean, I would I would spend hours just going through these environments and just picking off the enemies one by one. But if you don't like that, then you might not really enjoy it so much.
Is there as much insta-death moments or enemies like in the first one?
What do you mean?
Well, in the first one of the issues that I had, that it was oftentimes that once you get basically discovered by certain enemies, it was basically done because they would just sprint at you and try to flash out your neck.
No, there's not. So there are still things like the clickers that if they get you, then you're pretty much dead unless you have a shiv or something like that. But the areas are so open that like especially with the human enemies, if they see you and start rushing at you, it's I won't say it's very easy, but it is definitely doable to like get away and to hide, and then for them to lose you, and then for them to kind of like start going back on their patrol and trying to find you again. So I think that is better and well done. And that really just is more to a credit to the size of the environments, because they're so big that it's really kind of like a it's like a murder playground basically. Let's see what else. The game is beautiful. For the most part, I think it's one of the best looking games that is currently out. There are some instances where you're like, yeah, this PlayStation 4 is starting to show its age. But I mean, it's a 7-year-old console. The game runs very well. It does run, it's locked at 30 FPS, but it feels smooth for the most part. there's not a huge amount of options in terms of like display options. You can turn down the motion blur, which is nice. But there's a film grain that is pretty noticeable. I personally don't mind it, but I could see some people not really loving it, and kind of surprised that they don't give you an option to disable that or at least turn it down. But I swear some of the times I am playing this game and I forget that I am playing a game and that I'm not watching a movie. And I literally like I remember that I'm holding a controller like playing this game. I mean, I'm not even talking about cutscenes. I'm talking about like while I'm actually just walking around in the environments. It just looks so good. And I mean, again, not even talking about the cutscenes. The cutscenes are just mind-boggling. The facial features and the facial animations and the voice acting, of course, and just the acting in general is just like unbelievably good. So yeah, it is a really good looking game. I've taken so many screenshots in this game, just like they do have a photo mode, which is nice. The HUD is very well done. There's for the most part, while you're just walking around, like there is no HUD, and then the HUD kind of comes in like when you need it. It's very well done with that. I really, really love games that try and push the HUD out of the way until you need it. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't want to say anything about the story. I don't want to even say whether I like it, don't like it. I mean, I like the game a lot, but not going to say anything about the story. I think it's... I will say this. I had a big worry at the end of Last of Us 1, or when I heard that they were making a second one, I had a big worry because I was like, I was on the fence, or I was in the crowd of like, I don't think this game needs a sequel. I didn't feel like, it needed anything else to be told. I thought it was perfect how it ended. But after playing this, I feel like it's very clear that the writers had planned this out. Like they wanted to tell more of that story. And I don't feel like it's just a story that like they just added on just to make a new story. Like it's very much clear to me that they had planned on continuing this.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I will certainly get around to playing it at some point, probably. So we'll see if I will overall enjoy it more than the first one.
Yeah, because you were kind of lukewarm on the first one, right?
Well, I there are certain things I liked about it, and then certain things that I really didn't like about it.
Yeah.
And, for me personally, the issues with the gameplay really took me out of some of the story moments as well, because it was very immersion breaking for me, which then obviously impacted the strong part of the game, which is certainly the story and the characters and the emotional side of it. So I do think the first one is a good game, but it was never for me anywhere close to one of my favorite games.
Mm. Yeah, it's really difficult for me because, again, like I say, the first game, story-wise, I think is just one of the best stories I've ever played in a video game. But the gameplay, like, is just very much average to me, but maybe just slightly above average, because I do really like the stealth and just the... Like, if I could play Last of Us 1 in 100% stealth mode, which I guess you could for the most part. Well, actually, that's not true. There are some instances where, like, you have to shoot and you have to shoot at enemies. If I never had to shoot in the game, though, it would be better to me. And I think this game, again, while it doesn't really do a whole lot new, other than just a couple of mechanics, but it really refines everything. And with the accessibility options, which I'm not really saying that's a Like, I don't think that's a good thing that you should have to turn on accessibility options to enjoy this game. But at least they are there. It allows me to enjoy it much, much more gameplay wise from the original game. And I still find myself like I've been taking quite a few breaks with this game just because it's very intense, not just story wise, but just like gameplay wise. But it's one of those things where it's like every time I take a break, not even 10 minutes after I'm done playing, I'm like, man, I want to get back and play some more. So I think that's a good thing. But yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to finish it for a couple of reasons. First of all, just because I want to finish this game and I just want to see how it ends. And then second, I just want to see what in the world everyone is talking about and why everyone is talking, why everyone is seems to be review bombing the game and hating on the game so much.
Okay, so you know more about it than I do because I stayed away from it. So is that a thing? Are they review bombing? Is there a lot of hate? I don't know.
So yeah, this was weird. This was weird for me. Because I had completely stayed away from everything. Like, I had not even looked at review scores, not even just like, you know, the scores in general, until I got the game and I started playing the game. And then I just started like seeing some stuff on Twitter and Reddit and that kind of stuff that I saw, first of all, that it was getting a bunch of 10s. And that it was just getting like, you know, a bunch of 10 out of 10s, a bunch of really high scores. And I was like, well, you know, sounds like it's a good game. And then all of a sudden, like, I started hearing about all these people review bombing it. And apparently there were like 30,000 people on Metacritic that gave it or that reviewed it. And I think there were like 20,000 people that gave it a 0 out of 10. And this was on like the very first day. So they clearly had not even played the game because, you know, again, this is like a 25 to 30 hour game.
Speculated last week.
Yeah, exactly. So I still have no idea why they're review bombing it. I mean, like, no, you know what? I'm not even going to say anything because I really just want people to experience this story for themselves. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to say anything about the story. For me personally, I love the game. I'm having a great time with the game.
I'm looking forward to, at least like once you finish it, then obviously you can also be a little more free and into looking into what they're criticizing.
That's what I want to do. Yeah, I just want to finish the game. Like I said, I want to finish it for me because I want to find out how the story ends. But I also just want to finish it so I can figure out what in the world everybody is so upset about.
Looking forward to hear that.
Yeah.
If it is actually something fairly legit, I doubt it. If it's like I see almost no reasonable way that it would be a 0 out of any kind of scale. Like, even if you don't like it and didn't enjoy it, or like the ending sucks or something like that, like, how could it be a 0? Like,
well, my problem is, even if it was the worst game ever made, there is no way that 20,000 people beat this game 12 hours after it came out.
Yes.
So yeah, it's weird, and it's a weird thing in gaming in general, like this notion of review bombing and this mob mentality that happens sometimes. I don't like it, and it frustrates me a lot because I feel like people on the outside look at gamers as just like this very immature crowd, and I feel like this just makes it even worse when, you know, people just throw a fit over things that they don't even know what they're talking about. They just see everybody review bombing like, oh, I'm going to jump on this because I don't know why, but I'm going to do that too. So yeah, I think I've said everything that I want to say about Last of Us. I mean, if anybody has any questions, non-story wise, I'll be happy to answer them. Koala says, why do you think people do it? I think it's just, I mean, this is not just gaming, and I don't know enough about this, but you know, I do know that there is just kind of a psychological or a sociological thing with like people just when they see other people doing things, then they kind of get caught up in it and want to do it themselves. I mean, it's just kind of a human thing. I don't really understand it because I don't feel like I'm that way, but maybe I am. Maybe I am to a certain degree if I get in certain situations.
Yeah, I think it is certainly herd mentality
Yeah.
to a large degree, but I also think it you have that over the last years in particular, that you have certain circles of the internet kind of creating this outrage machine over and over about something new. And the issue with that is that you always need something to be outraged about. And so it always moves to a new target, and the smallest thing than it can be. And it's always, there's always some weird giant evil agenda they are fighting against. And apparently the only way to do it is then review bomb something they probably didn't even experience. And I think it's a mixture of that, like this herd mentality, feeling part of this movement, so to speak, but also the outrage mentality of being outraged about something important and like making or trying to make change or something in kind of a weird, twisted way, where really there is no issue, like creating issues where there are no issues.
There's also I feel like this always happens, that every time there's an exclusive game for a console, whether it's a Sony game or a Nintendo game, there's just haters. Like there's people that just are going to hate it because it's a Sony game. Breath of the Wild got so review bombed to a certain degree, not anywhere near this, but there's just always going to be those people out there that don't have a Nintendo console, and they're PC gamers, and they think that their PC is the best thing ever made, and that any other game that's made for a console is subpar, and that's not right, obviously.
But like Brian Boru says, then it is like it creates this weird agenda. Then it's like, oh, it's the Nintendo agenda, that all the PC magazine or all the video game magazines are pro Nintendo. That is why they all get this good reviews. That is why we have to review bomb it. And these kind of things, it's just and like even if it is, even if those things would exist, like, what do you care?
I mean,
it's like to a degree, it's or the way then the way they choose to express their malcontent is so ineffective, and really just about it's probably like a negative virtue signaling of anything.
Yeah, I mean, I do have kind of an issue with a lot of game journalists, because there are a lot, and I mean, we could probably have a huge discussion about this, but I think that there is a lot of influence in game journalism. It kind of bothers me how so many journalists cover games a lot of times where they are, I mean, first of all, let's break it down to like the most simplest thing. If you are given a free game to review, that is going to influence your opinion. Like, no matter what you think, if I get a free game, even if I go in, trying to have an open mind,
subconsciously, even if you try,
because you're not spending your money on that. Yeah. And then you can take that a step further. When they like these publishers fly the journalists out and like give them hotel rooms and give them all this free merch and things like that. Now, I'm not saying everyone does that. I know that there are a few organizations that do not do that, but there's a lot of them that do. And I think that you just need to realize that like that does influence their position, even if they say it doesn't. I think that it does, even if it's a subconscious thing, because we're all human and we're not perfect. And
especially in a very access dependent type of media like game journalism is, they need the access, and the access is only given by the people they are reviewing and talking about. So that obviously creates a conflict of interest. And but the thing is, like, those are legitimate criticisms to talk about, but review bombing or comment bombing or something like that. That doesn't change anything. They like criticize what you want to criticize, and there are legitimate criticisms, but instead it's kind of there is then a phantom enemy created, a phantom agenda created, where the easiest way is to just review bomb it, because it's convenient to express your outrage over that instead of really actually going into the criticism that is legitimate and that should be addressed.
And as much as I hate review bombing, like, it does work sometimes. I mean, there are legitimate times where games have been review bombed on Steam, especially, and like they've gone back and changed things. Look at Star Wars Battlefront 2. That definitely deserved the criticism. I still don't necessarily agree with it, but it does work. But I guess the thing with The Last of Us 2 is it's just like, I don't know why they're review bombing it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
But that's the thing. Sometimes, I think it started to a degree as a form of protest from a legitimate standpoint for games where there were very objectable issues to be pointed out, like, let's say, Battlefront 2, where you would criticize the gambling mechanics of a loot box system and promising things that then never happened or weren't in the game. Like, those are things to criticize. But then but once you start that is the outrage machine that I'm talking about. Once that is over, what do you do then? Well, then you look for the next game to be outraged about. But if there isn't a real issue, then there is a new issue created. Then it's like the smallest thing. People got outraged at The Last of Us 2 trailer in particular. I think you know what I mean. And then it's those things that it's all of a sudden worth review bombing for, although it really has nothing to do with the quality of the game, because there's supposed to be a hidden agenda behind that.
Yeah. Brian in chat said that, or he was asking if that's what happened to Final Fantasy 14. I don't know if that was actually review bombed. I don't know if review bombing was really even a thing back then when that launched, but they did. I don't know. I don't know enough about this, but I know that they did like completely rework that game and redo that game basically like from the ground up.
I know that review was a big issue for the latest Metro game when it decided that it would be Epic Store exclusive, and when they old games on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that happened.
Yeah. Going back to Last of Us 2, I don't think there's anything else to talk about right now. Again, I'm not going to say anything about the story. So, mechanics wise, I love it. I'm really having a great time with it. I think if you liked the first one at all, or enjoyed the story and the world and everything like that, then it's absolutely worth playing through that. I also I'll just mention all the review bombing. Excuse me. All the all the review bombing and hate that it's been getting, it clearly didn't do a whole lot, because I saw that the game has sold 4 million copies in 3 days, making it the fastest selling Sony game of all time. So better than Spider-Man, which broke records just a couple of years ago, better than God of War, better than all of them. So it's doing well. Qual says, what do you think about Twitch silently reducing channel points? Outrageous.
Yeah, it is actually a hidden agenda. Not sure if you know about that, but I think we have to review bomb Twitch now.
Yeah. Everybody go to Metacritic, review bomb Twitch. 0 out of 10. All right, let's see. Do you want to take a break, or are you good to go?
I'm good to go if you are good to go.
I think we can wrap this up pretty quickly. Once again, in chat, if you guys have any questions or topics or anything that you want to talk about, feel free to throw them in chat, or put them in Discord. That is honestly the best way to do it, so I don't miss it. But we have got just a couple of things to talk about. First topic is Mixer. Mixer is shut down.
I don't even know her.
This was out of nowhere, right? Yeah. They just came out, announced this. Mixer is, so they're not technically shut down. They are moving to Facebook Gaming. I guess Facebook Gaming maybe bought them out. My understanding is that Mixer is shutting down the operations side, and they are just moving over to Facebook Gaming, but they're basically shut down. All of the contracts that they had with streamers, the huge people that they spent millions, literally, like, what was it, $40 million, $30 million for Ninja?
Yeah, especially the $20 to $30 million.
And this was just not even a year ago that they did this. They paid out their contracts, and now they are free agents. They're free to go wherever they want. I guess, apparently they were just in worse shape than people thought, and that was just kind of their last ditch effort was to.
I mean, they must have known it a year ago. Like, that obviously doesn't happen that fast. So it was probably, hey, let's spend all of this money to get a few big names. And it's interesting because I am not sure if you're familiar with the YouTube channel Game Theory, but he did a video on that move. And one thing that was pointed out, that in his theory, it would have been way more effective to take the money and get a bunch of middle tier Twitch streamers to Mixer instead of a couple of high tier streamers, because that is really what builds a community and builds a structure like that. So in hindsight, that probably would have been the better move. But then again, oftentimes high corporation heads are not really in the weeds about these things, and they see Ninja, he likes a Red Bull, let's pay him some money.
Well, they saw too that, he was pulling in 80,000, 100,000 people on Twitch. And they were like, oh, well, if we take him off, then all of those people will come with him. And that didn't happen. I think on average, like, he was pulling maybe like 1,000 to 3,000 viewers, which is, literally just a fraction of what he was getting on Twitch.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, that it happened so out of nowhere. I feel bad for the creators on Mixer that obviously are not the Ninjas and Shrouds and all that. For them is a sweet deal. It's a 1 year they were about to this and get a few millions out of it. So congrats to them. They made a good move. But it's obviously sucks for all the smaller creators who have their community there, who may be making a living of it, or maybe just a part of a living of it. And now basically a month out here, that in a month or so they have to move over to Facebook, and that is always tricky, changing platforms, of course. So that must be tough for the content creators there, and it sucks, and it's interesting. It will be interesting to see how this will now continue, if YouTube will make a move for the big names. If apparently Facebook made an offer to Ninja and Shroud, at least as far as I heard, but they declined. So we'll see. We will see how it goes. Generally speaking, it is always good to have a little more competition in the streaming market, more platforms that will usually, what is the saying? Rising tide lifts all boats, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how Twitch reacts to that. But it's definitely interesting that it happens so out of nowhere, and also shows that it's not as easy as just getting a few big names, and that a community created on a platform is not as easily translatable to another platform.
Yeah, it sucks, honestly, because I think I never really used Mixer too much, but I do know it had some really interesting technology that they were using. They were way ahead of the curve when it came to like low latency streaming. Way before Twitch was putting in low latency streaming for chat and everything like that. They had that technology. Their just streaming technology in general seemed like it was a little bit better than Twitch. And it just sucks because, competition is good. And Twitch is massive, and there's no reason for them to try and really improve anything, and I think that they definitely could improve on some things. In other news, Akko and I are now moving to Mixer. We are going to be exclusive to Mixer. We are now 100% share owners of Mixer, and we look forward to seeing you there.
We're Mixer it up.
Yep. Let's see. We got a couple of questions here in the chat. Brian says, I assume you already covered the Cyberpunk 2077 already. We didn't. Let's talk about that really quick because neither one of us actually watched the coverage, and I think we're kind of both in the same boat that like we're really excited for this game, but like I personally I don't want to see anything else about this game until I have it in my hands and I can play it. It is definitely out there though if you want to go and check it out. Lots and lots of people are covering it. Gameplay is out there. I'm sure it looks amazing. I've heard it looks amazing. I'm sure the game is going to be amazing. I just want to play it. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about it. Anything you want to say about it?
No, same. Staying away from as much as possible until I actually get to play it. But good to hear that for the most part, the little bit that I couldn't avoid from hearing is that people liked what they saw. So that's, I think, positive. But yeah, mostly just looking forward to play it myself.
Yeah, same for me. Danny Owen asks, what did you guys think about the Avengers trailer? I actually did not watch the Avengers trailer, the new Avengers game trailer. Did you?
I saw a little bit of it, and to me, it looked like visually improved to what they first showed. The characters looked a little rough in the first trailer that I saw. It looked improved. It looks like a fine-ish game. I'm not too hyped for it. But looks could be fun.
I am so unsure about this game. When they first talked about it, I thought it sounded pretty cool, but then there's just so much talk about it being a live service game, and that just sounds gross to me. And so much talk about it like you being able to play it with your friends, and I mean that's fine, but it's not. I don't think it's really the kind of game that I want. And I don't really know if, at least when I initially saw it and when they initially revealed it and were talking about it, it seemed like they didn't really know what they were doing with it. It seemed like they were kind of going back and forth on what this game really was. So I hope it's good. I hope people enjoy it. I feel like this could just really go either way, though. I feel like it could be really, really good, or it could be like really mediocre.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, if it turns out to be great, then I will definitely check it out. If not, then not.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope it's good, honestly. I really do.
Sure.
Because it seems like it could be really fun. But we will just have to wait and see. Do you know when this is coming out? It's coming out fairly soon, right? September?
Yeah, I think they moved it like roughly around the time Cyberpunk was supposed to come out. So I think September.
You think it'll hit that date, or will they delay it again?
I think they will hit the day.
September 4th is when that comes out.
So, yeah, 2 months. A little over 2 months.
Let's see what else we have in chat. Cyberpunk 2077, Avengers. Um,
Yeah, they announced that there will be some anime episodes based on the Cyberpunk
oh, that's
2077.
right. Yeah, they're coming out with an anime for that.
Yeah, I mean, they also. I'm not sure if that is in any way connected because obviously I, I doubt they own the property, but they also announced that there will be a Witcher anime on Netflix. So I'm not sure if there is a
Oh,
connection there.
interesting.
Yeah, and the showrunner for the Netflix show, the live action Witcher show, she will also write for that anime, which will be like a short movie or something like that. Um, so excited for that, which apparently will cover like a side story in the world, which sounds nice. So I wonder if there is if CD Projekt is somehow connected to that as well, because it seems like a weird coincidence that now we also get an anime for Cyberpunk.
Yeah, that is. It's weird because I mean they have the live action Witcher, and they're also going to have an anime. But it would make sense if like CD Projekt Red was more involved in the anime, and the original writer is more involved in the live action version. Because I don't think CD Projekt Red really has anything to do with the live action Henry Cavill version.
That was solely based on the books, and obviously, I would assume that the rights to all the base material is with the author. So, but again, it's a weird coincidence that we have now of both CD Projekt Red properties animes on, or will there will be animes on it on Netflix.
Yeah.
So maybe they maybe I could see them, maybe Netflix working together with them on like some visual to base like the anime visuals maybe closer to the game visuals, or like to some of the characters, adjusting that to that, and maybe they'll work with CD Projekt Red on that. That is how it came together.
Um, there was a new trailer for Deadly Premonition 2 that you put in
Yes,
here. Are you excited for this?
I'm excited for this. It's a very. Are you familiar with the first game?
I am familiar, but I never played it. I think I own the game. I need to play it.
Yes, you should, because it's very weird. It has terrible game mechanics, but it has a fantastic Twin Peaks like story with lots of weirdness, bizarre characters, but ultimately a lot of charm and a very unique story. And some interesting mechanics as well. It was set up as a something that was that Resident Evil wanted to try for a very long time, like an open world horror game. And you are kind of playing in an open world, and you can do a lot of side quests, not side quests less, but like little activities on the side. And there is like time going on, time progression. So there are some cool mechanics, but it's really about the weirdness of the characters and the story. And I'm excited for the second one. I haven't played it myself, the first one, but I watched the game, and big fan.
Um, yeah. Is this a Switch exclusive?
I think so.
I mean, I don't mean to sound negative, but this game looks like it was made in like 2009.
Yes.
It
mean,
does not look great
no,
graphically, which I mean that's fine. And I know that was some of the allure of it. Is it's just like it's like why are they making this game? But at the same time, it's like people are down for it.
yeah.
But man, it does not look great.
No, it does not. No, but neither did the first one. So
I had to look. I was like, am I looking at this at 480p or something? Well, yeah, I like I said, I haven't played them, but I do know a little bit about them. And like you said, I always got major Twin Peaks vibes, and it looks just kind of quirky and weird, and I definitely would like to try it out. But man, what a weird story for this game. Like getting a sequel on Switch only, and then it literally looks like they're just using the same engine for the original one or something. But hey, more power to them.
meta for the whole first game. That like the weirdness continues even in the release of the second game.
Um, Danielle says it's called Retro.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. That comes out in September too. It looks like September 7th.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got. I mentioned Last of Us sold more than 4 million copies. There was a new Crash Bandicoot game announced. I've never played these games, but I know a lot of people have played them and are very fond of them. So I just wanted to mention that and throw that out there. People seem really excited for that.
Uncharted 4. So.
Yeah, that was literally my first introduction to that, and I literally thought that the entire game was just like a platformer, like where you run towards the camera. I didn't realize that there was actually more to it than that. So I never understood what people were so excited about that game for. Yeah, it looks I don't know, it looks cute and fun. If you like those games, I'm sure you will enjoy this one. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Ratchet and Clank series, which I haven't played any of those. I need to try those out too. Do you know about the game Biomutant?
No.
So this game was revealed, I don't even know how long ago it was, probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was shown off at like E3 2018 maybe, and saying that it was coming out in 2019, and then last year it was shown off again, and then like they were still saying, yeah, it's coming in 2019, and then like they just went completely silent on it. And then everybody, myself included, was just kind of thinking, well, maybe this game has just kind of disappeared. I don't know, maybe it just ran out of steam, but it seems to still be in full production. They seem to be complete or finished with the game, and they're just wrapping up or just kind of fixing bugs now, and it seems like it's going to be coming out this year. It's a weird game. You play as a little mutated raccoon or something like that, but it's a fully open world game. It's got kind of a Dark Souls like combat system to it. They talked a lot about like Zelda Breath of the Wild, that influenced them a lot, in that you can just kind of go anywhere, do anything you want to do.
Looks visually better than Deadly Premonition 2.
Yeah. But I'm excited for this. I don't know a whole lot about it other than just what I've mentioned. It looks like it just is going to be an interesting, fun game. It seems like the people that are making it are very passionate about it. So I'm very excited to try this out. They put out I don't know, this is like a 10-minute gameplay trailer of it. And it looks pretty darn good to me.
Yeah,
Lots of
what I've seen, like it looks cool. Like it has an interesting art style, and the gameplay looks fun too. So yeah. That's worth keeping an eye out.
I'm excited to check it out. Still no hard release date for it, but they seem to be pretty confident that it's going to be coming out this year. So I'm excited to try that out. Let's see. The only other thing that I have, this is a rumor, but it seems to be a pretty solid rumor that Rocksteady, the developers of the Arkham games, are going to be making a Suicide Squad game. Lots of people are thinking that it's going to be revealed in, I believe, August. There's a DC event or something like that that's coming up, and they seem to think that it's going to be revealed then. A lot of people have been wanting to know what Rocksteady is going to be doing, because a lot of people really liked the Batman Arkham games. I didn't love them, but I don't really love them because I don't like the combat so much. But I'm very much in the minority there. Have you played any of those games?
All of them.
Did you like them? I'm assuming that you did.
Yeah. Especially Arkham City, I think is amazing. It's up there with one of my favorites, and I like the other ones to different degrees as well.
Arkham City was the middle one, is that right?
Yeah, like it's the second one. was Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Origins, Knight.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people really like those. Batman with Souls combat, that's what we need, Koala. But what are your thoughts on a Suicide Squad game? Would you be down for that?
Sure. I mean, at the end, if it's like the Arkham games with different characters that have different abilities, sure, why not? Oh. I'm sure it will be fine if they have a similar mechanics. I think it's now been a while since the last Batman game, so
yeah, what was it, like 2015?
16 or something like that. So it's been some time, and I think Spider-Man now has evolved that type of combat a little bit and adjusted it obviously to the Spider-Man character. But it would be interesting to see how they can apply that old formula onto new characters and different kind of abilities. Would be interesting to see. I always thought that they probably should have focused on a different superhero anyway, sooner or later, to just switch it up to just take someone else with different abilities and get a different setting with the same mechanics. But now they may do that, and has potential. I thought the Suicide Squad movie was horrendous.
I never saw it, but I heard it was. Yeah.
Yeah, not too familiar with the characters. Obviously, it can also change which characters they would put into the game. But does it have potential, and is it worth keeping an eye on? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the rumor for a long time was that they were working on a Superman game, but they put that rumor to bed, said that they were not working on that. But they kept teasing, and they've been teasing for so long that they've been working on a new game. So hopefully we'll see something about that soon. I know a lot of people have been wanting to find out more information about that. I just saw breaking news. It's probably not that exciting to most people, but I'm excited. The Dark Pictures anthology, Little Hope, put out a new trailer. This is the people that I always forget the name of the game that they made that I loved. It was the horror game that's only on PlayStation.
Man of Medan.
Man of Medan is the previous one of this, but what is the other one that they made?
Until Dawn.
Until Dawn. I never can remember the name of that. But yeah, so they've been working on a new series, which I really like the idea of this. It's an anthology where they have short games, but they're coming out like once every year, two every year.
Wasn't one of some of Men of Medan that like it's very short, but like you pay $40 for it.
Yeah, I think it was only $30 or $40. I think it was only 30. And I think it was like 4 hours, but it was really good. If you like those kind of games, if you like Until Dawn, I didn't think it was as good as Until Dawn, but it was just a fun, just kind of campy horror. And each one of these are separate games. Like they're all kind of set in the same universe, but they're separate stories. So they just put out a new trailer for Little Hope, which is coming out this summer. They don't have a specific release date for that.
It's over. So
what did you say?
I mean, summer is not too long, so it must be in the next couple of months, right?
Yeah, I mean, summer just started. June 22nd or something like that is the beginning of summer. So we have 3 months. So yeah, I'm sure we'll hear about a release date for that soon. I think that's going to do it for us today, Akko. You got anything else that you want to mention?
I don't have anything. If there aren't any questions to address.
Oh, I didn't even bring up the questions. Wait, we do have a couple of questions, don't we?
I think so, yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I put one in here. What popular games are you ashamed of that you haven't played or finished?
We mentioned earlier, Disco Elysium.
Yeah, that's definitely one.
Enjoyed it up until then. So I would put that on there. Other than that, I haven't finished. I don't. It's like most games that I don't finish, I didn't like, or I come back. I mean, I guess Mass Effect Andromeda but I'm working on finishing it now.
You're working on that one, yeah.
Do you have any? While I think about.
I have a lot. I mean, these are more just like I'm trying to think of any ones that like I guess I'm not really ashamed of these. But like a lot of the Mario games, I haven't played a lot of the Mario games, and I once played those. A lot of the Zeldas I haven't played. Just so many console games, like Metal Gear Solid. I want to play all of those. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a really good one though that Danny put in chat. I've tried like 3 times to play that game, and I know I'm gonna like that game when I play it, when I just get into the mindset, but I don't know, for whatever reason I have a hard time getting into that game. Disco is a really good one. I feel kind of like, man, I really should play this game, and I'm sure that I would enjoy it. Yeah. Oh, you know what? One that I know I need to play is Chrono Trigger. I've heard so many good things about Chrono Trigger, and the art style always kind of turns me off a little bit, but I really think I'm going to enjoy that game, and it's definitely on my list.
I think so too, yeah.
Let's see, what do we have in chat? Ooh, Horizon Zero Dawn Alpha. Oh, that hurts. Spider-Man. Uncharted Lost Legacy, Red Dead Redemption 2. Medieval Remastered. Wait, is that game out yet? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Medieval Remastered. Durbin wants to do Medieval. You are supposed to say medieval, right? Not medieval.
I think so, yeah.
All right, let's see. Akko's got one here. Do you return to games that you played at least halfway through but never finished? I definitely do. A lot of times, though, are you asking, like, do you return to a game, like, maybe you played 30 hours of an RPG and then, like, you come back 2 years later and pick it up again from that point? Or are you asking both? Like, because I usually will restart a game. I definitely come back to games a lot. I will play through a game and, for whatever reason, just fall off of it. And then very infrequently, though, do I come back and like pick it up again in the middle, because it's so hard for me a lot of times to like remember what I was doing, remember how the controls work, everything like that. So usually if I come back to a game, I'm going to restart it and play it from the beginning.
Yeah, I think for me, I try that, but there are just some games. It just where I got far enough in that I don't want to, like, that I know that if I restart, I know what happens. I'm kind of I'm experiencing it again, but I'm also, it's been too long to remember where I actually stopped. So kind of, and then I have that issue with Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I got like, I think like 15, 20 hours in, and then I just lost track of it. And it's like, like I enjoyed it, but I didn't, like, it wasn't that mind-blowing enough to replay those 20 hours again. But I also can't just jump back in because I'm out of the loop. So I have that issue there. I think I've had the same with Infamous Second Son, or whatever it's called. Like, I got a good chunk into there. But I think it's mostly with games that I like but aren't completely blowing me away. Where then I'm like, probably will never get back to it.
Yeah. Persona 5 is a good one that Danny said. That is definitely one that I took some really long breaks. Like, I think probably the longest break that I took was maybe 6 months with that game. But I found it pretty easy to come back to and to jump back into. Just kind of the way it's structured, I didn't really have too much issue getting back into that game. And that game literally took me like a year to beat. So I took some really big breaks with that. But yeah, for the most part, if I take a break from a game and then come back, I'm going to restart it from the beginning. But I know what you mean. There are some games that like they're okay games that like you want to finish, but you don't really want to go back and replay like the first 20 hours of a game. So that is difficult. I have heard some people say and have this same discussion that if you can give yourself like 2 hours, like with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, set like a 2-hour time limit on it and just try and push through. And usually like within 1 to 2 hours, you will kind of, you're able to get back into it. You're able to kind of remember the flow of the game and the controls and everything. But if you don't, then just like, you know, don't beat yourself up over it. It's no big deal. You can just, you know, finish or not finish it, or maybe shelf it and maybe come back like 5 years, you know, from now and try and get back into it, replay it from the start.
Yeah.
So the only other thing that I put on here that I don't think we should do now, but I think that this would be maybe kind of an interesting thing to have like a multi-part series to this. Maybe just bring it up like a little bit each podcast, is start kind of having a game of generation discussion, since we are coming up on the end of this generation. I think it could be interesting to, you know, really try and think about what games. And I mean, it doesn't have to be just like console games. It could be games on PC as well. You know, from 2013 to 2020, what have been the greatest games of that period? And I don't even necessarily like want to pick, you know, like this is the game of the generation. But I think it would be fun to maybe even focus on like one game a week or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And so I would love for
can bring up one game of that generation. That we would put into the into our basically our Hall of Fame for this generation. I mean,
right.
Not a ranking or anything, but it's a Hall of Fame for this generation.
Yeah. I like that. And I mean, I don't know, maybe we even bring like a couple, like 2 or 3 games per week, and like we try and figure out, you know, which is the best out of those games. But I would love for people in chat too, if you guys have like a game or games, it doesn't have to be one game, but you know, some of your favorite games of this generation, some of the games that you think are the best games. I would love for you guys to mention them. Let's maybe put that in Discord.
Yeah, I have a Discord channel specifically for the podcast as well, so people in my Discord can post their suggestions there as well. But one thing, do we count remakes or remasters?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, any game released 2013 up until now is eligible to be inducted.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I don't think there's any sense in putting any silly rules on this. Like you can't have a remaster in there or something like that, or a remake. I think this is more of just like a celebration of this generation, you know, and just talking about the games that we've played throughout this generation. So if anybody in chat wants to do that, I would love to hear your guys' suggestions. And don't just put like, you know, like Bloodborne, like put Bloodborne and tell me like why you think it's the greatest game of this generation or something like that. All right, I think that's going to do it for us today. Akko, what do you have coming up next week?
Next week, I will continue with Mass Effect Andromeda and, surprise, surprise, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. There will be more of that. But yeah, those will be the games that I will focus on next week. And looking forward to both of them.
Very cool. I'll be continuing Resident Evil Code Veronica, and also be continuing Majora's Mask. I realized it's kind of interesting. I'm playing two games that are literally exactly 20 years old. They were both came out in 2000. So I promise I will be coming out with something a little bit more recent. And then I'm playing Last of Us 2 off stream, just because I don't know. I wanted to have I wanted to stream that, but at the same time I wanted to just be selfish and just fully immerse myself into that game.
Mm.
But yeah, we'll be back next week, and we will talk some more. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please go and check out Akko if you haven't already. A really great streamer. Always enjoy watching him. And that's gonna do it. Thank you all. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.